Hello, darling. Oh, all right, all right. So this is going to work the same way you guys just did with Quentin. I'll pass the mic. And just please say where you're from. Yes. Where you're from? Okay. You want to be first? Okay.
Hello, Uma. My name's
Hi.
Liam. I've been in the program for 10 years, and I'm from San Francisco.
Really? Liam, that's fantastic. Congratulations. Do you want to tell us a story?
Well, one time I was in an Irish bar with an Irishman, an Englishman, and a Scotsman. I'm sorry. Okay. We just learned that he actually had 3 movies in the can, not 2. So how do you feel about the fact that there's a third Kill Bill coming out?
What are you talking about?
Just kidding. I do want to know, though, if you can give a couple of examples. Quentin talked a little bit about ways that the actors were able to go beyond the script, but didn't give any specifics. So I'm curious to know about ways that you were able to go beyond his script and maybe bring more to it and add to it.
Well, I'll just have to ask him what he means exactly. But, he used to say that he felt like he purposefully underwrote the character of the bride because he wanted to leave her to me in a way. That's what he would say. But frankly, I always appreciate his overwriting. It's so good when he gets into the dialogue. There's just no one with the kind of voice and rhythm that he can have when he really lets it out. I don't know. I mean, for me, it's so strange because this film and the idea of doing this with him has sort of been in my life for 10 years since we did Pulp Fiction, and it didn't really seem like it was going to be a realized movie for 6 of those years. But then it came back, and so I've sort of been living with this. And through the whole process, when he went back to writing, he would come and he'd call me in all hours, and you'd be out in a restaurant, and you'd get this phone call like, "Hi, I know you're really busy, but I wrote the scene. You just gotta hear it." And so you'd sort of like, you're like, "Oh, excuse me, everyone." And so you'd go stand in the corner of the restaurant, and 20 minutes later, it'd be like, "I love the scene. I like that. I like that. I like that. Now my dinner is on the table." So it is cooling by the moment, even as the dialogue is heating up. So in a way, it's sort of, I've just never had that experience where you inhabit the character, and there were all these things that that came and went. Like at one point, the bride had sort of like a monster-like quality where there was a special effect in the eyes, and I was like, "No, Quentin, you can't make the character into a monster." I mean, it's a monster anyway, but let's keep it, let's keep the monster real. And he could, "No, yes." And so then he settled on a pulsating vein that he was going to have a special effect. And I fought him on this endlessly, and he knew I hated it. But then he had the special effects guy rig one up, just to really draw the torture out, because I was like, "Oh no, he's going to do the pulsating vein." When they do that, it's like things where I'm about to go, go nuts. Ultimately, the pulsating vein was gone, and he sort of wryly said to me, "You have a vein on your forehead that when you get really mad, it just sort of sticks out. And I don't need the special effect at all." And I'd be like, "Ah!" I think more than, I guess, right? I rambled.
Quentin, he was just trying to throw you. Quentin actually did, in fact, say that he has in his distant thoughts ahead a sequel that would take place 15 years later, and that he has sort of kind of discussed it with you.
Mm-hmm.
What would be your feelings at some date in the future re-exploring this world?
Well, Quentin, you just never can underestimate Quentin. Who knows? I think that, he's a phenomenal artist. He's a very unpredictable person, and it's the kind of thing where I love the ideas he has for the third one. They're very, very good. But who knows? I can't spend time thinking about these sort of fishing lines. It'll either be or it won't be. We'll see.
Can you describe the torture to your body and what you went through during the filming of it?
Well, what did we spend almost an entire year in production, 3 of which was training. Training, in a way, was almost the hardest thing because I was so out of shape, and it was sheer muscle burning, coordination, honing. And in the beginning, I was so completely uncoordinated because it's like someone trying to, I don't know, teach you to tap dance in a day, and you just feel you go through so much frustration and I'll never be able to do it, and then you just have to kind of like a baby just try and try and try until finally you get a little bit and a little bit more. And then finally, once we started shooting the House of Blue Leaves sequence first, and that turned into an 8-week fight sequence. It was supposed to be 3, I think, initially. By the end of that, I'd been sort of in that world physically, hardly getting to ever say any dialogue, and if I did, it was in Japanese. I was feeling very hogtied and scared. By the end of that, it was as if I'd sort of just taken it into myself. And when we went back to America and confronted more stuff, I sort of felt like there's nothing you can do to me that Castro has not already done. Or in this case, Quentin and the master have not already done. So it was a very difficult shoot, and in many ways because of its unpredictability, because you just didn't really know what to expect. And he often would get bored if he'd seen, if you rehearse something and practice it, it could be wonderful. But if he's seen it a few times, he's done. It's like, I'm done with that. Let's do something else. Make her do something else. Don't do that anymore. Just go hit her with a stick. I can't hit her with a stick. She's not prepared for me to hit her with a stick. I gotta go practice hitting her with a stick. No. It'd be like this whole kind of thing. So, but then you get used to that and you realize, okay, I'm in the twilight zone and I'm now going to suspend everything I understand that is a rule of cinema. We're going to suspend all rules, production rules, shooting rules, acting rules. We're just going to suspend them all. And I'm going to play uncle, and I'll win. I won't say uncle. Here we go. And so it's sort of like a very funny thing like that.
Did you ever just want to say, okay, you get in and do it? I mean, did you guys ever?
Oh, I handed in the sword a number of occasions. When he'd be complaining, I'd go, and he'd go, or, he'd often get out there. He'd be fearless to, march around with it.
The burial scene
Yeah.
is brilliant. And there's a lot of films that have tried it and they don't work, but in this film it's so incredible, and it's really because of the darkness and the sound. What was it like shooting that? And how did you know when it was working and if it was going to work?
Well, what's interesting about that, watching it on screen, is to see how little of the footage that we shot he ended up using. And ultimately, it's so effective because the theater goes dark with her, and you hear what it would feel like to be in there. And but we shot many different styles, many different angles. Just about every way you could stick a camera in a coffin, we did it. And a camera and me. A camera and a blonde, let's put it that way. And a knife, and some boots, and a flashlight, yes, and some ropes, and a belt. So, we shot a lot, because, every section of that had its own issues. And then I had the great joy of climbing from the grave and becoming Dirt Girl, which I got to be for many, many weeks, covered in dirt in every crevice of my body. It was just a joy. They would come to me with different types of dirts. Peat mosses, clays, red clays, brown clays, plain old dirt. I decided that me and dirt really better stay in opposite sides of the universe. There's a reason for me to be clean. And although I did, the humor of all this stuff, though, is it's great, is that you sit down and you watch months and months and months of work turn into 2 exhilarating hours of screen time. Whatever anyone wants to say about it, they like it, they don't like it, but it's exhilarating, and it's very gratifying after all that dirt and the coffin to get to have that result. Thanks.
One of the things, that I found so amazing was was how tight he shoots you and the rest of the actors in the film. It just feels like the camera is on top of you. And as the audience, we get that. I mean, when we can see your eye twitch, or specifically when we see Daryl's lip twitch as you guys are standing off. What did that mean to you in the sense of your performance, having the camera so close or being so intimate? Were you aware of it? How does
Well, I mean, as an actor and having spent my whole life making movies pretty much, like you have a natural sense of your frame, and that changes performance only in that it becomes more and more and more reduced, because the tighter you are in the frame, all this stuff goes away, right? Which, can work, which, when you're in a wide shot, the story is being told, the expression is being told in full body, full room, the architecture of the blocking is expressive, all that kind of stuff. So when you're just nailed down into, the tightest of unforgiving close-ups, it just reduces and hones itself. And I think ultimately when you see the two movies together, it's kind of amazing how just as the story, it's like sort of going into a funnel, into a cone, so is the camera. The first one has this sort of sense of, operatic grandeur with like 88 people running around and big physical movements. It's all about body and scope. And then, as the mission refines itself, as the enemies are struck from the list, the camera is sort of claustrophobically intensifying itself up until Bill.
What was your reaction the first time that you saw the film? Because it's changed so much from the initial script through to the shooting of the thing, and then it becomes two movies instead of one, and has changed. What was I mean, you've never probably seen yourself in that way before on the big screen. What was your initial reaction?
Well, many different reactions. I mean, in your question, you covered a lot of ground, but first of all, like when I saw the first movie, and I couldn't have been more nervous. And of course, Quentin and I have to watch it alone together while he can stare at my every reaction. So, sort of like, well, what? But he actually said at that time, I who sort of had, notoriously, although I think I'm not quite as bad, but been so uncomfortable with watching myself in the past. He said, you know what, in 5 minutes you're just going to forget about it and relax. I said, oh, aren't you bold? Let's see if I do. But I did find that watching it, that I did forget it was me. And I sort of watched something else, and I was amazed watching The House of Blue Leaves. Not in a self-congratulatory sort of way, because it wasn't even me. It was just like the whole thing. It was like, wow, look at that chick in the yellow suit. Wow, that's weird. And then, of course, you have the other thing of like, why did we shoot that from 4 angles? Look, he just used one. I knew. That could have been a double. You can't even tell that's me. You have this like little rat voice in your head kind of kibitzing, as you're watching first time especially. But and I of course, being so much part of it, I notice things, that I think probably only I would notice. But I only saw the second half, a week ago today, and I sort of sat there and I don't know, I was very moved and in a weird way, sort of sad too, because it's just so much work and so much time, and then there's the movie, and you think, wow, that's my life. I make movies, and now this one's done, and it's just sort of, I don't know, it's kind of touching.
Hi, Uma. Question: do you see any Oscar potential in this Kill Bill Volume 2?
In one's dreams or something, but it's something that would be so nice, but it's not something that you can expect. I mean, 2 giant movies, all the elements, just don't expect it. You never know, but.
Were you disappointed did it have any nominations for the first one?
I wasn't that surprised. Also because for me, I mean, the frustration of knowing that the majority of the performance was in the second half. And once it's split in half, it is for me one story. It is one performance. It is one journey. It is one giant struggle. That's what it is for me. But I knew at the premiere that everybody's watching really 15% of the character, because the section that is the first part of the movie is extremely streamlined. You know, it's a muscular, wrathful, playful, crazy, you know, but it's really the smaller section if you think of the story and the character development. So I wasn't really surprised.
Hi, Uma. Talk about the fight scene with Daryl Hannah. That was.
You know, that was like, you know, not since Porky's Revenge. Have you seen, like, you know, two blondes, you know, short of, I mean, if only we almost were mud wrestling, if you consider my dirt. And the fact that my dirt was a type of mud mixed with peat moss and things like that, and not wet, applied dry. With a little Vaseline sometimes. Oh, it was just delish. But, you know, it was, you know, so obviously like a comic, you know, fight. You know, and I could tell he completely, you know, was so self-amused that he had come up with this. And, you know, I felt bad for Daryl, though. I didn't really, because I guess I had it in every other direction. But she got the slightly worse end of the stick with the toilet and the entire can of spittle, whatever that was. So yeah, that was bad. And then the poor thing lost her eye, but which, you know, hurt me to leave her alive, frankly, because you know what that means. But anyway, you know, it was just so obviously comic, you know. And again, it was the classic thing of, like, you know, production said it was going to be 5 days. You think that the shape of the fight will make sense, and 3 weeks later, you're still throwing spittoon cans in her face, and it's just insane.
Hi, Uma. Congratulations on the movie. Absolutely loved it. Now, when I spoke to David Carradine, he said that being in a Quentin Tarantino movie, or doing a Quentin Tarantino movie, is like being in a Quentin Tarantino movie. It's just so weird. Do you ever, like, just while you were shooting, stand back and just go, oh my God, this is crazy? Because it just seems like the set would be wild to be on.
Yes and no, you know. I mean, in ways that probably wouldn't seem obvious. I mean, yes and no. I think that, yeah, I mean, he has a very intense energy that, you know, wildly creative energy. He does.
Hi, Uma.
Hi.
I wanted to ask you, as an actress, that I think it's such a challenge, you know, for anyone to cry on cue. Where is your mindset? Because in both versions, it seems you come out of this emotional, out of the scene, or is there something that you draw upon? But is that a complicated effort, or is it shot one time because you look so emotional?
Well, I always think that that's your emotional state is so depending on where you are with in your acting, but like, or how you like to do it, or what your thoughts on it. Everyone's different, but for me, it's so much a product of my connection to the character, and my relationship to the moment and how the scene is constructed. And I find that when those things are all together, that often what I need will come, you know. And if it doesn't, it's because there's something interfering with it. Like, if it doesn't, it's because of something bothering me, either in the motivation or in. So you're
someplace else when that happens.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like, it's sort of, that's what's so thrilling about acting, is it's sort of, you know, when I was younger, you know, you try to do method acting, you're so scared of your crying scene. It's like, oh, can I cry? Oh, and it's like, you know. And, you know, you try to jerk out a tear, and it's just really just awful, and everyone's looking at you, and you stink, and you know you stink, and then you could really cry about that, frankly. But those would be real tears. You know, as time goes by, and, you know, when you're really integrated into your character, and you know, it's feeling the reality of your character, and connecting to that moment that is the sort of freedom of acting, and it is the release, and whether it's joy or sadness or whatever it is. It's sort of, you know, when you're in the right place at the right time, it's there.
In Quentin's bio, he refers to you as my actress, Uma Thurman. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, when you read what he writes for you, is he writing it for the person Uma Thurman, the actress Uma Thurman, or Quentin's idea of who you are?
Surely a combination of everything. I don't know. I don't know. That's a better. Who knows? He wouldn't be able to answer it either, I guess. I think that it's the actress. I think that in some way it's what's amazing about having the confidence and the connection with the director, writer-director, especially Quentin, is that he doesn't see actors in general in a box. You know, like he doesn't see you because you're wearing a red sweater as the red sweater person. Do you know what I mean? He'll look into your talent, and as you can see, he does with all his casting. He looks into your talent and imagines you in the most exciting way, and that might actually mean to really give you the opportunity to do something you've never done before. A lot of people cast for likeness and for what they think is familiarity, what reminds them of a person. Like someone once said to me, "Why am I always in snow movies? I get offered all these movies in the snow." And I said, "I can tell you why. Producer and casting director are sitting down and they have their snow script, it's snowy, and think, snow, who have I seen in the snow? He looks good in the snow. I know he does." And you know, you just never know. But so it's that kind of freedom and inventiveness in his casting and in his writing then, you know, like he wrote me a bugger of a part. I mean, it was like, I spent much of the time in the beginning saying, this is impossible. You know, it's almost impossible. And he doesn't make it easy, you know what I mean? It's not like the character is so obviously sympathetic and oh joy, I can throw this lead part on my shoulders and just carry the movie, oh yay, everyone's with me. No, what happens in the first movie? I kill the mother in front of the child. The whole audience is like, people would read the script and say, you can't do that. We hate the character. We'll never want to see the character do the rest of the movie. But that's what he wants to do. He wants to stack the cards with you and against you, and then you know, together then you fight it out. You play your hand. And it's an interesting sort of challenge.
Why do you think it works so much, though? Why do you think we do have a sympathy, even though in the first 10 minutes of the first film you kill a mother in front of the child?
Well, frankly, I don't know. I believe you me, I was on pins and needles. I don't know. I mean, first of all, it is self-defense. I mean, I think somewhere, even though it's the most horrific thing you could imagine, and you don't want to like anyone who's in that situation, somewhere subconsciously you do register that she takes the kaboom box and tries to blow my head off, and, you know, and in its own comic way, you know, it's a reflexive move. It's like, no, you know, because we just had a conversation where we agree, and I promise her no business around your kids, and you know, and then she goes and gets her kaboom box. And you know, you broke the rules, sister. So so I think somewhere in the audience is subconscious. I mean, the narrative of the drama isn't unregistered, but still it's difficult.
I just wanted to ask a little bit about David Carradine. Most of the world still identifies him with Kung Fu, and this is in many ways a Kung Fu movie, but he does very little of it. Instead, we've got these wonderful cerebral conversations. And if you would just talk some about that final scene with him and the whole Clark Kent back and forth. What was he like, and what was shooting that scene like?
Well, David is a sort of such a wonderfully evolved, relaxed, centered person. He's one of those people that you don't really see a big energy shift between their on and off camera presence, you know, which is sort of like where maybe some actors arrive, you know what I mean? It's not a big shift. They're so integrated. Their voice is rooted. They're so centered that they step in and out of the frame, and it's all the same. So that's sort of wonderful to work with. It's sort of like, you know, someone who's just so stable in their performance like that, and so it gives a lot of strength. Um, you know, I don't know, there's a poetry to some of the stuff in that end sequence, you know, that I find very moving, you know, for the struggle of the character, this woman trying to change her ways, but having her own nature and her own guilt and responsibility, and that real question that I think we all have is can we change? You know, can we improve? Can we move past something? Can we be free of our actions ever? How can you atone for anything? Are you allowed to have a new life? When will your old life come back, and either within you or from outside of you? I mean, his rationale is not unsound. I mean, the repercussions were a little extreme, but.
Last question.
I think for me, the biggest surprise of the film was that the first film, you think it's a story of revenge. And maybe it is at the end of it all, but the big surprise for me was that in some ways it's really a love story. A sadomasochistic love story. But it's, do you see that in this film at all?
I think the sentence sadomasochistic love story is probably not 100% off. The underpinnings of the story are, you know, are tragedy. You know, I mean, the underpinnings of the story are, lost love, unrequited love, rejection, violence, hate. So yeah, I think I mean, that's what the second movie brings to you is you know, all that kind of, all those broad strokes of anger and violence and, you know, campiness sort of come to roost in what is some type of an emotional center of the movie.
Sort of like an exaggerated sense of relationships we've all been through in some form, but just not this bad.
Well, yeah, luckily none of us are paid assassins, I hope. There's only room for one assassin in a relationship, okay? Not two. Bye. Thank you. That was so much more fun than doing those 3-minute things.
Don't make that a rule, though.